So now that you understand the outline, let's actually create an outline for a product using the skeleton I just gave you, where we define purpose, why it works, what's involved, and then step-by-step how to do this. So let's just say we were using the example how to write an article in 7 minutes or less. And by the way, I use FreeMind to do this. You can use any tool, and I can break down FreeMind for you in a later module. I will on exactly how to do that. So next I actually literally will type in the purpose, why it works, what's involved, how to do it. Now the customer is never going to necessarily see this, or I don't plan on them. This is just for me to organize my information so when it comes time to knock out the content for the product, I have it aligned here and easy to reference, right? So for the purpose, I'm going to start putting down concepts related to the purpose. So I might say the quality will be good enough so customers won't care. So what that means is the purpose of my approach, the solution I'm providing to them, the purpose is to have decent enough quality, but the focus is on quantity. And then I might come up with additional purposes. Well, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and I like to do this relatively fast for these ideas. So I might say, okay, what other purpose would my information or could my information serve? Well, another purpose is obviously to get traffic and buyers to your websites. So we could put that in there as a purpose. And I might define several other purposes here because this is just the outline section. So we're brainstorming and coming up with ideas and concepts, right? And when it's done, I might then organize these and what I think is the most important and least important by moving them around. And I might even delete some of these things or slightly edit them. So this is what my outline is going to be based on when I actually create the content. I'm going to say, okay, the purpose on how to write an article in 7 minutes or less is to do so in a way where quality is good, but quantity is key, because we discovered that it seems to be the best way to get traffic and buyers to your website and make money with article marketing is with a quantity-first based approach, with good enough quality so customers don't feel like you don't know what you're talking about. And then I might have a couple other purposes. So I'm hitting that in a paragraph, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. Then the next section of my outline is the why it works. And so I can give some examples of why it works. So the first thing that I can say is it works simply because we're utilizing a framework and a template. And the point is, once you take out all the creativity, which actually might end up be a second point, no creativity required, right? Once you take all the creativity out and you have an assembly line framework, first do this, then do that, then do this, then do that, then it's incredibly powerful. And so that's why it works so good. It also can work really well is because it's been tested hundreds of times. So that's an experience type of why. Although you don't necessarily have to test something 100 times before you sell it, but if you have, explain to them this is why it works so well. Why it works so well is because you basically reverse engineered all the most popular articles, and then you discover the commonalities between them. And so then when it came time to create this section, whether it's an audio, a video, PDF, whatever format you decided on, you would explain to them it works so well because we approach this with a framework template assembly line approach. By looking and studying at all the different commonalities that we discovered, the most popular, most well-received, most read articles, we were able to see patterns. And so we wanted to eliminate any creativity involved because we noticed at the longest time it took somebody to write an article had to do with thinking of what to say next. Now that we've eliminated that and then refined the approach several different times, I'm going to distill down to you exactly what you're going to need to do in order to write your articles quicker and faster and better than ever before. So then we're done with that section. So then the next section here is what's involved. This is where we're going to define the parts. And so for example, what's involved is the intro. So we're going to have to explain to them, this is the purpose of the introduction. Not the purpose. We're going to say, here's the introduction. Here's what the introduction means specifically when it comes to us writing articles in 7 minutes. And then we could say main points. So typically an article has 3 main points. I'm going to explain to them what a main point is. Subpoints, which are things that help the main point. And then obviously a conclusion to the article, and then transitions between each of the intros and the main points and the conclusion, and then research sites and how we're going to research this. Now, what we will do is very often, this is called nesting in a sense. We'll break down steps into mini steps, or we'll break down steps into criteria. So what's involved, we'll explain to them research sites. And so in this particular case, it can be like Wikipedia, for example. Google searches could be another way to do research sites. We could do things along the lines of Reddit, for example, as a research site. So we might give them 3 to 5 research sites. That's what's involved. Okay, intro, main points, subpoints, conclusion. So I like to define each of these, and I like to explain where it fits in and kind of give some background so they understand it. So when I start to do the how-to, they have been introduced to each one of these things, and they have been defined, and they know the role that these things play. So then it makes it very easy for them to execute on the how-to. And so then lastly here, we have the how-to. This is where we're going to take this stuff over here and put it into step-by-step. And so step number 1 would be, if we're writing an article in 7 minutes or less, it's very simple. Come up with your topic. And then I've just noticed here, and this is funny, this is how it really works in the real world. You say, oh, what's involved? Well, topic, right? So, and then I would organize it here. What's involved is where they need to come up with a topic. And actually, when I first created an article in 7 minutes, I didn't even define how to find a topic, because most people that were buying it already had topics in mind. They just specifically wanted to focus on the writing. So I could literally decide not to put topic in on my how-to, or I could. So I say, come up with a topic, right? Do the research, organize into main point, subpoint format, write intro, write main points, write conclusion, write transitions, proofread, tighten up. And I might even do this optional. Very often I like to actually create optional steps. So by looking kind of up here to get an idea, that helped me flesh out down here how to do it. And now here's what's great, is steps within steps or criteria to consider. That's everything that we do is either step-by-step or criteria-based. So come up with a topic. We can give them step-by-step of how to come up with the topic, steps within steps. Or we can give them criteria to consider. You know, we could say the following thing, what's hot? We could say, what are people talking about on forums or in Facebook, social media? We could say Google keyword suggest. We could say, consider using any of these following criteria or these options in this particular case to come up with your topic, right? And then do the research. This is where we could provide to them the different research sites and how to use each and every one of them. So what I first taught when I did how to write an article in 7 minutes or less, I said, use 3 different research points to get 3 different main points. So that way you will never plagiarize an article, even if accidentally, right? So, you know, 1 main point from, then I'd say, you know, Google search, Reddit, Wikipedia, or, and I could give, you know, or blank, or blank, or blank. So I can give them a step-by-step where they say, go here, get 1 main point, and then decide on which of these where you're going to get the main point from. And then so for organizing the main point, subpoint. So an example of that is just to say, like, you know, a main point to feng shui is understanding the power position. So I could say understanding power position. That could be one of my main points. And then within that main point, what are 2 subpoints that would augment that piece of content? And so, you know, subpoint number 1 is, you know, where would you be least vulnerable? And subpoint number 2 is examples of power positions. And so when I did my research, all I got to figure out is where to go for each of these. And that's main point 1, and then main point 2, and main point 3. So I would just have to break down and show them, and I could potentially use examples or whatever on how to organize their information into those things. And then I give them best practices on here's how most intros are written. So here's how you can modify and adjust them. Here's how we take the concept from the main points and flesh those out into nice chunks about 100 to 150 words each. Here's the most easily used and common transitions. And now you're done. There's your article in 7 minutes or less. That's it. So I would create this outline for my reference prior to sitting down and banging out the product.